When you're looking at a job posting, and a lot of job posts will say you need 5 years SaaS experience, you need this, look at your own experience and see how you can translate. That's the part that you should show a future employer when you're interviewing or applying. If you're having a day where people are hanging up on you, not answering the phone. There was a deal 2 years ago that I think I worked 7 months on, which is 7 times our normal span of closing a deal. And in the end, they didn't come through. And the pressure of sales, it is a very high stress environment. Something that I do think I've perfected in my tenure working in sales is you have to, in the US market, sell why someone should talk to you first and foremost and why you will make their life easier. There's so many products and there's so many tools people could go after. There's so many things that they could buy and they could do their research on their own. There is a mentality in the US where we work, right? I think what's really important to keep in mind in this is when you work in sales, the people that interview you are also in sales. And it's very easy in this job to be sold on joining a team and joining a company because it's the best in the industry are the ones interviewing you. You're always going to have stress. But if you're not having work nightmares every night, if you are happy where you work, if you feel supported by the people that work with you, you will naturally grow there. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is that.
Welcome to FemLead, the podcast on female leadership and role models. This show aims to inspire and equip you with the tools you need to navigate your career plans. FemLead brings inspiring career perspectives and strategies to guide your path to success. Your host, Alexandra, will interview role models on new exciting topics with each episode. If you like what you hear, give us a review and subscribe to the show on your preferred streaming platform. Enjoy.
New year, new guest. Today we welcome Jessica Cohen, North America Sales Manager at Dealfront at FemLead Podcast, and I couldn't be more excited to be sharing also a new field and industry to discuss, the world of sales. Dealfront is the go-to-market platform that gives sales and marketing teams the data, applications, and insights they need to find leads and close deals. After 10 years of being a sales leader in the B2C sector, Jessica joined Leadfeeder, now Dealfront, as an account executive eager to learn more about the world of software as a service. Jessica shares that sales is about one thing, human connection. She has now been at Dealfront for over 2 years, and she leads the North America sales team, where they strive to deliver a personalized experience for all of their prospects. Not only does Jessica love the product, but she also aligns with the company's values, especially when it comes to being a remote-first company. Jessica is here to share advice on building a successful sales career. She's here to highlight how to connect with people when trying to share your messaging across and sell your products and ideas, but also wants to share tips into the North American market and advice for women looking to start or thrive in this field. I'm very excited about having Jessica here with us today. So without further ado, let's welcome Jessica Cohen to FemLead Podcast. Welcome, Jessica. It's a pleasure to have you here. How are you today?
My day is going well. It is right the middle of the week, in the middle of the month of the last month of the year. So as someone in sales, I feel like every day is a little bit more chaotic and stressful when you're at the end of the line. But personally, day's going great. It's sunny, it's beautiful, and it's only 12:45 here. So we've got a long day ahead.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, Jessica. It's really a pleasure to have you here today. I was really excited about this interview because I have a little bit of background into what you're working on. And for us, this is a new field, as in we've interviewed before sales leaders, but I'm really interested in how you've built your career because you have more than a decade of experience in this field and you build it up from being an account executive. So for us, it's also very relevant to speak from your experience about what were the steps that you've taken and also why do you find this career exciting? What is really cool about sales? And you know, when we look at sales as an industry, we often say that being in sales is a trajectory towards executive roles. And that is because you own, to a certain extent, also the P&L, and you also own, I would say you have an understanding very, very acute on how a company grows and how you can make it sustainable, how you have revenue coming in and how you do the financials on like, okay, how are we going to approach the next quarters? So in terms of, the skills and also the approach you have to have in order to continue to sell the product is very interesting. So I would like to start this interview by asking you if you can share with us firstly your career into sales and your journey so far, and what inspired you to pursue a career in this field.
Yeah, I think it was a natural journey for me. When I was younger, I started working in restaurants, while I was in school. And one of the things that I really loved is connecting with the patrons at the restaurant and being frank, being a server or waitress or, whatever the term is your first sales job. You have a menu. The more you're going to sell. Now, I'll preface that I'm in the U.S., so we work off of tips. So the more you sell, the more you're going to make. And I realized that I really loved making that connection, and it really unfolded from there. So I grew that career in the restaurant industry, moving actually into catering sales, group sales in hotels, and staying within the hospitality industry. And the thing that I loved was something that you mentioned, both being the revenue driver, being creative, and how are we going to do this? How are we going to grow as a business? And having a huge part of that, especially in the hospitality industry. I didn't build the hotel. I'm not designing the hotel, all the things that people would think. And I realized that's something I really, really loved. And as I grew in my career, I wanted to grow into the exciting world of tech and the SaaS industry. And that was something really important to me. And I knew that I could transfer my sales skills over because I felt like although the hospitality industry isn't going anywhere, it's growing and it's wonderful. I was excited to have even more of a influence in a company that I could like something in tech. And so I made that transition. And one thing I love to point out is I think it's always great to make a transition. So I went from directing sales in hospitality to joining from an account executive, more entry level into a sales team to move into tech. But quickly saw that the skill set is really the same. And so I was able to grow really quickly within this company, knowing that I had so many years behind me just within another industry.
Fantastic. And thank you for highlighting also interchangeable skills and how you can change industries, because I know a lot of our listeners are interested in exploring opportunities in their careers that are not necessarily linked to one field. And I feel some of our listeners might think that it's going to be hard. So how do I approach it? Do you have any tips into, the mindset or actually some situations that you've encountered switching from hospitality to software as a service?
Yeah, I think that the first thing, first and foremost, is your own worries, right? When you're looking at a job posting, and a lot of job posts will say you need 5-year SaaS experience, you need this. I think it's so important to look at your own experience and see how you can translate. So in the end, the most important thing from sales is driving revenue. So as long as you're able to show that this is how I drove revenue here, that's the transferable skill. And that, whether you're going to move industries, that's the part that you should show a future employer when you're interviewing or applying. Make sure that you always are keeping in mind your own success. What were your goals? Because no matter what industry you're in, the sales job had goals you had to achieve. Did you surpass them? And how did you do it? Because that's what's transferable. And I think going into an interview or writing your cover letter, highlighting that this is what I did before and how I was successful, and this is why I know I can translate it. I believe that most sales leaders will be impressed by that, because sales, they can teach you their product. They can teach you what it does and who their customer base is. But if you can prove that you already have the skill set and the wherewithal to sell, then it's very easily transferable. So I actually don't think it's a hindrance from the hiring side. I think a lot of people have an internal dialogue telling themselves that they can't switch, but really it's just the skill set you're bringing over. You'll learn what you're selling very easily.
That's a very good reminder to all of us. And when it comes to your day-to-day considering that now you are the sales manager for North America at Dealfront, and you must work in a very fast-paced environment, especially in a software as a service company that is, based on potentially subscriptions and then working B2B, working with large corporates or companies in general. How then do you manage your day, and what should we understand about your role now looking from the outside?
Yeah, managing your day could be hard. And I'll point out too that we are a fully remote organization as well, which is very unique. And so I think that something that's really important is keeping your goals in mind and starting the day that way. So every day I'm starting looking at what are our goals for the month, what are our goals for the year, and where are we within hitting those goals. That's how I start my morning every single day and work backwards from there. Okay, we're slightly shy of it. What are the things that we need to do today to make a difference? But you also need to be able to pivot because things are going to come up. Deals that you thought were going to come through today are going to push away. New things are going to arise. And so that pivoting is really important. But I think, like you were saying it again in the beginning of this, of we're the ones driving revenue, we're making the difference. You always have to start your day and organize your day with that goal in mind. So if that deal that you thought your team was bringing in falls through, you're going to pivot quickly to find where are we going to get that revenue from somewhere else. And that's really how I start my day. And then I, as a manager, connect with my team to make sure they're starting their day the same way and looking at their own pipelines and their own goals and collaborating while also motivating. Sales is could be tough at times. And there could be days that are bad, and we have to make sure that we're staying motivated and friendly.
That's actually a great segue into my next question, because I wanted to ask you if throughout your career you had like a moment that was both challenging but in the end rewarding, and if you can illustrate for us, what are the ups and downs of working in sales, because I think this is something that potentially is on the mind of people either working within the field or considering to enter the field. They just don't know what to expect, and I think you highlighted very well that it's not a linear type of role. So of course it's full of different challenges throughout the day, but ideally you are able to navigate because it is such a fluid and also complex environment. So you can use different problem solving skills and different skills in general when it comes to promoting your ideas. So can you give us an illustration of like how did you navigate a similar situation?
Yeah, I think that in every industry that I've worked in, when I was in hospitality and that would be B2C, or when I'm working in SaaS and it's B2B, there's been times where I feel really connected to the person or the business I'm selling to. I'm working really hard for it. And then there was a deal 2 years ago that I think I worked 7 months on, which is 7 times our normal span of what of closing a deal. And in the end, they didn't come through. And I think that something that I do think I've perfected in my tenure working in sales is walking away for a moment. And I would say this to any person in sales, especially SDRs, business development representatives. If you're having a day where people are hanging up on you, not answering the phone, someone might be rude to you. There's just a culture where people feel okay to just, they don't want to be sold to and they're rude. I actually think it's very important to close your laptop for a moment, go grab a cup of coffee, walk outside and re-energize, because your mood comes through on a call. It comes through in an email, and you have to shake it off and move on. And you also have to be on the hunt for the next thing and forget that thing. It is such an easy thing in sales to just want to keep fighting for that one person that told you no that you thought was going to say yes, rather than just let it go and use that energy to find a new deal. You're going to do so much better shifting your focus that way and looking for new revenue that way. So that is something that I learned. I learned it a long time ago in a big, in a B2C, in a huge multi-million-dollar deal for this hotel I was working at. They ended up not going with us. And I went out for lunch and I had to do a reset. And it really just took that of, great, I got to go find another multi-million-dollar deal. And that's what I'm going to go do. And I'm going to make it happen.
When you speak, I also hear a lot of confidence that it will be okay. How do you cultivate that?
You know, that probably comes with a bit of experience and trial and error and knowing that it will work out. But it's really important in sales to have confidence in yourself and confidence in what you're selling, and knowing that if one deal goes away, one deal is going to come in. And I think you just have to remind yourself that. I also think in sales, it's really important to remind yourself that you're not, well, you might be saving lives depending what you're selling, but it is a very high stress environment, but not usually one where the world depends on it in that extreme moment, but it feels that way. The pressure of sales feels that way. So I think that knowing that there's going to be times that are hard, there are going to be deals that are easy. The whole idea is keeping the big picture in mind. You've got a goal for the year usually in your business, and you've got to hit it. And so that one deal is not going to change everything if you can go after another, and just reminding yourself that. But I have to be very honest, that's going to come with experience. If someone who wants to enter sales is watching this, you are going to feel stress in the beginning, and it's going to be very hard to like have the confidence and let go, which is why I say sign off, go for lunch, get a coffee, take a refresh and get that confidence back. Don't have someone tell you no, they're not buying, hang up and call someone right away. Because I do think you need to like purge that experience for a moment and then move on.
Yeah, I think that's a very good piece of advice in terms of also taking a step back overall what you've shared in the past few minutes. It's all about letting it also be, and don't just jump into the next call thinking that you can push it up until someone will say yes, because you are right, we can feel the connection. And when I was working in sales, we were discussing right before we started the recording that I also have a background in business development. And when I was working in sales, I feel like the number one advice we've always gotten, and something I felt myself when I was talking to prospects, was that they know how happy or sad you are when you pick up the phone, or when even when you write and when you're kind of sending a message across. And if it feels like you're not genuine, it really impacts the overall relationship and connection. And 100%. This is something that once I heard that, I think we did this exercise where one of our sales colleagues said, call me and then smile, like be happy, like as in talk and then smile while you talk, as if, you really are excited about this. And then, that came quite natural. So I was like, okay, great, I'm going to do this. I was very excited. And then I could see how like he was telling me, and now you're making me excited about something. I don't even know what you're trying to say to me. But then he said, call me again. And then this time be sad. Like, just don't show so much excitement about what you're selling, and try to see how I react. And the whole vibe changed. The whole situation was just so, I don't really want to be in this call. How do I get out of here? And I think you can actually apply that in life. When you talk to someone, to a friend, to a business partner, to whoever you meet in your life, and you are a little bit like, I don't know if I want to be here. They also don't want to hang out. Or at least they're like more like, what is going on? Like something is like dragging me down.
Yeah.
But if you are the one that kind of shares, okay, I want to be here, I'm genuinely interested in spending time with you, you also get this connection, right? And it's the same in sales and in relationships with people.
100%.
You have, you have the opportunity to establish a positive, interaction.
It's a connection. I equate it. I'm sure you go shopping, I go shopping. And have you ever walked into a boutique when there is a person who works in that store who is friendly and nice and is showing you things, you will buy more there. But I have walked into boutiques where there's someone behind the counter. They don't even say hi. They don't even welcome me into the store. I never buy there because it doesn't feel fun. And that's sales. They're in a sales job. They're selling clothes. And I think that translates into everything. And that's a relatable scenario everyone knows. It's when someone's in a bad mood, you feel it, and you'll feel it over the phone too. People just don't realize that. I'm always smiling if I'm on the phone because it will come through to whoever I'm talking to.
Absolutely. Great piece of advice also for listeners who want to improve maybe their communication style, or also being aware of how people react to their messaging, that it matters. It does make a difference. And when it comes to actually building, but also maintaining these relationships that you are, of course, slowly but surely building when you work in sales, how do you approach then relationship building with clients? And can you share some strategies that you found effective within your field?
I think that you are selling yourself first. You have to connect with somebody, especially in today's day and age. right? There's so many products and there's so many tools people could go after. There's so many things that they could buy and they could do their research on their own. And you have to connect with them. And that is going to start in two ways. One, be yourself, talk normally, have a normal conversation to start, and don't make it so standard like, hi, how are you? You know, I mean, the simple question of where are you based out of? Anything like that. If you're on a Zoom call, what's in the background? But having a fluid conversation is so important. Like, we have to bring the human interaction back into things. And the second is you have to listen. You have to listen is going to not just help your sales, but is going to help you make a connection. And when I say listen, I don't mean let them talk and you think about the next thing you're going to say. I mean, nothing, your phone turned upside down, you're not looking at it, you are listening to the person so that you can actually respond to what they're saying will build a massive connection. Because again, why do they want to buy? They want to work with you first and foremost. And that's so important in today's day. And I think that's something that I really built that skill set first, being B2C, knowing that I had to have someone want to work with me first, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to provide. And I think it's as simple as that. I think in sales, I always tell people when I'm hiring for my team, it's personality first and foremost. I'll teach you our product, I'll teach you other things, but are you comfortable talking to strangers? And don't lose that. I tell my team that all the time too. Rely on your personality. You're great. Be excited to get to know someone new first, then want to sell to them second.
Absolutely. And when it comes to your mindset, because this is something that you've mentioned between the lines also in terms of confidence and also showing up and knowing that you are there to, first of all, present yourself and have a genuine connection with someone. When it comes to successful mindset in sales, what do you think are key traits to building that? And what do you recommend for our listeners to keep in mind especially when they're going through downtimes, how do they go back to this positive mindset when it comes to moving forward?
Yeah. Two things. First, you have to remember that sometimes when people don't want to work with you, they don't know you. So don't take it personally, right? They didn't buy your product. It was your company's product, or they just didn't want to talk to somebody that day. But it's not the same as a friend who has known you for 10 years and has now decided to end that friendship. So knowing that, even though I was just saying to be personable, bring yourself to it, you're still in a role and they don't know, I'm sure outside of this interaction or transaction, they would love to be your friend if they actually got to know you, is very important. And then I lost my train of thought. The second one is I think it's just important to be able to pivot and to just know that you got to just move on to the next thing. You've got to just let that go, like I was saying earlier. And I think that's a good way to keep the confidence, throughout this. But I always tell myself that they don't know me, especially any business development SDRs. If someone hangs up, they're not hanging up on you. They're hanging up on a salesperson. And, I'm sure they would love you if they really got to know you outside of that.
Absolutely. And if I may add something that I found very relevant at the time that I used throughout my career was, your priority is not my priority. Mm-hmm. So when you get into this mindset and when you create, of course, a persona that needs to sell a product that and you are the expert in selling that set of features or that product, you feel that there's a priority to go through certain specifications or highlight some of the outcomes of what that product will offer you. But of course, research and all of that is important, because when you are in the midst of the sales process, you will realize that what you thought was a priority is actually not a priority for the person you're trying to sell to. So actually understanding that and not taking it, like you mentioned, personally when you don't get the feedback that you expected, it's actually very important. And when I got this piece of advice, I was like, it really changed the way I reacted to discussions that I was having when I didn't get, why don't you get my point?
Yeah.
Like I'm just making this very, very clear that it brings value. But for some reason I don't see the same level of engagement. And is there something that I'm missing? And when I got this piece of advice, I was like, of course we also need to be aware of timing and all of these different other things, but maybe it's not the priority right now. So how can I make sure I'm top of mind and engage you in something that brings value to you, that is a priority, and perhaps the product I'm selling can somehow fit in, or maybe there's a better time to discuss this, maybe later, and still leave a good impression. I think that made a big change for me when I changed the mindset and look at it.
100%. And that comes with the listening, right? When I was saying you have to actively listen, I talk to my team about this all the time. Don't be scared to disqualify someone. Maybe it's not the right move, and that's okay, because they will appreciate that. And when it is the right time, they will remember you, and that is okay. And that kind of finesse in sales comes with time, of knowing what to spend your time on. But the other is exactly what you said. If you go into every single call saying, this is what I'm going to talk about, then when you're listening to your customer, your prospect, anyone you're talking to, all you're thinking about is the next line in your sales pitch. If you really listen to what they're saying, that, and then have the skill set to pivot in what you were going to talk about, if you don't really know what their pain point is, what they need to solve, you'll never, I shouldn't say never, but it's much harder to sell your tool. There will be people that it's just a perfect match, but they probably didn't need a salesperson anyway. And I think that is so important. And that's why making that connection, because maybe it's on you to remember in 6 months, they said that's going to be one they want, but I promise if they felt connected to you, they'll remember you in 6 months too and come back. And I love what you said, because then you'll have that open dialogue. Then you'll be ghosted less. You won't be spending nights going, why isn't that prospect answering? You know, you made a connection. People will feel more comfortable to be open and honest with you as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When it comes to positive mindsets, because we talked about confidence, we talked about staying motivated, but how do you practice this? Like, how do you in practice actually stay positive about, especially situations that are challenging? Because I imagine you don't get the most, I don't know, compassionate response to every, sale you're trying to make.
No.
How do you actually navigate that?
There's two sides to it too, because there could be rough patches at work, right? Maybe as a team, you're not hitting your goals, or the leads aren't as good, or whatever the issue, or there was a problem with the product that month that's beyond your control. And I think it's so important to say what's on your mind, to be able to vent with your colleagues, but in a very productive way, and make sure that you're not in a almost cyclone of negativity. And I think that that's really, really important, to have a really good relationship, both horizontally and vertically. So I feel very close to the person I report into, and very comfortable to have a session where I'm like, man, this is a rough day, and vent, but then we pivot to talk about how we're going to make it better after the vent session. And I have colleagues I can do that with as well. But it is really important in sales to, a lot of times you're working in your own lane. You have your own goal. These are your own leads. To connect with your sales colleagues, talk to them, vent to them, get ideas from them. But with saying that, make sure that you're not in a pattern of negativity, just always venting, because you won't get out of it. But you are in this together, and you shouldn't just be a lone wolf in sales. I think that that's a really, really important one. And that's something that I think most company cultures will offer. But it's up to you to also just make sure you don't stay in that and find your outlet. But it does feel good, right? When you talk to somebody and know that they are having the same experience, or they did the other day. It's not a you problem. It's just something that happens, and then you could move on from it.
Very, very interesting. Thank you for outlining that as well, Jessica. I have a question about now the setup of Dealfront, because Dealfront is a global company, but it's remote first. Yeah. So you also have colleagues all over the world, and you are connecting online. But at the same time, when you try to sell to a certain region, and now you are based in North America, you are serving that region, there must be some peculiarities, some things that are, more important in that region, also when it comes to approach and sending the message across. Yeah. So for all of our listeners who I'm sure they are interested in also placing their products and services in North America, what would you say are some of the things for them to be aware of? What are some of the characteristics of the market?
Yeah. Wow. So I think the U.S. market's less forgiving than the European market. When I talk to my colleagues, you get one shot at getting in front of somebody, and we're also not a huge phone call market. There's, I think 75% of phone calls go unanswered. But I think what's really important to keep in mind in this is there is a mentality in the U.S. where we work, right? The joke is in Europe, you guys could take 2 months off in the summer. In the US, we don't even take time off if we need surgery. So remember that someone's busy and their time is valuable, and you have to show why they should give you some of that time right away and upfront. And I think the second most important thing is, I'm trying to think of the appropriate term to say this on a podcast, but be real, no BS, as we say in the US market. And one of the things that I mean with that is back in the day, right? Sales was like the used car salesman. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to come at you and I'm just going to sell. Well, people don't need that anymore. This is the day and age of the internet. Everyone can do their own research. They know prices. They already know who your competitors are. They know all of that. You have to, in the US market, sell why someone should talk to you first and foremost, and why you will make their life easier. And I think that going in with that mindset of hey, this is who I am, do a little bit of research on the company first, find out a little bit about them, because you really do have one shot. And I think, I don't want to say our time is more valuable in the US, but we view it that way. So, and it's a competitive market. And I think that that's what's really important. I think it's as simple as that. I'm sitting here, and as I'm talking, I'm thinking in my mind, is there a more profound thing I can say? But I think that that's really what it is. Do a little bit of research on the company, know what you're going to go in with at first, be very respectful of the time, and get out of that aggressive sales mindset. You're going in as an ally. Hey, I'm reaching out to you because this is something I can offer that's going to help you. And I think that works very well in our market over here. And then also just pivot. Phone calls are not going to work, and neither are automated emails. So I do think you got to try a few different ways to get in touch, but don't.
Very, very good advice.
Bring your
very good advice. Yeah, thank you for that, Jessica. I think it's very good advice, and also gives an understanding of potentially some of the things that we've heard, but also from your perspective, leading that market, and also being located there and knowing how the customer will react to different approaches. I think it's very, very valuable. So thank you for that. Now, reflecting on your sales career, now you lead the North American market for Dealfront, and the company, it's global, and it really offers a good remote culture and a remote policy. But when it comes to let's say different experiences that you've encountered throughout your career, culminating with Dealfront now, what would you say are some unexpected or surprises that you've encountered in your career, and how would you say that they have maybe shaped your perspective on your career now?
Man, there's been so many. You know what I'll say the biggest one is, when you work in sales, the people that interview you are also in sales. And it's very easy in this job to be sold on joining a team and joining a company, because it's the best in the industry are the ones interviewing you. And that's something I learned. It's probably not on my LinkedIn. If anyone looks at my LinkedIn, not on my resume, but I've had a few more jobs than I've listed, because I haven't lasted very long there. Because I've left, it hasn't been the right fit, because I was really sold on an opportunity and didn't ask the right questions for what I wanted. And I think that's really important, is in your career, first think about what's important to you. Is it an endless amount of money that you can make as long as you're hitting your goals? Is it a certain culture? Is it inbound leads? Are you wanting to do entirely outbound? So I would think those things first before an interview, and then I would ask all the right questions. A lot of people can show shiny numbers, big numbers, but how attainable is that goal? What is the company doing to get those leads? What is the expectation of me? What are my KPIs and what am I going to be doing every day? Because I don't think anyone means to dupe you, but you're being interviewed by someone who's selling you and they're a salesperson. And so I just joined a lot of companies. And to give Dealfront a little bit of a plug, by the time I interviewed to join here, I had experiences during the pandemic. I joined 2 different companies. I lost my job at the start of the pandemic, like a lot of people did. I lasted about 2 months at one company, 1 month at another because of quickly joining, realizing the culture here is not great. This is going to be a very toxic sales job. And so I really joined Dealfront with the mindset. I wrote down the questions I wanted to ask in my interview. I reached out to people that work there on LinkedIn and asked about their experience. And the cultural fit has been really important. And I can tell anybody, if you are happy where you work, you're always going to have stress. But if you're not having work nightmares every night, if you feel supported by the people that work with you, if you like the company, you will naturally grow there. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is that you're interviewing with sellers. So you've really got to ask the right questions and do the right research because you could be duped.
I love that you mentioned that, Jessica. Let me tell you why. There is this piece of advice that we keep sharing and something that kind of keeps popping up back and forth when now and then also when we look at our interviews. Always have questions at the interview.
Always.
You always ask your potential new employer something about the role so that you get to have your spotlight of interviewing your interviewer and understanding, am I actually receiving answers that are in sync with what I envision I will be doing here?
Yeah.
Am I getting the answers that give some understanding of where the company is going? Is the company sustainable? Are they having the values that I'm connecting with? How I need to ask this at some point because, of course, you will be able to talk to peers, future peers, and that's a great piece of advice to talk to people in the company, also people who have left the company.
Yeah.
And ask, about the setup there, just to get a more complete image of where you will be spending a lot of your energy and time at, and also what sort of vibe will you be getting out of it, and be realistic on also your contribution. And be like, okay, if I am going to join this company, how am I going to add to what I'm being told? If it is, of course, positive and in sync, how am I going to contribute? And make it a fruitful collaboration because it gives back, but at the same time, it's also relevant for you to feel like you can be yourself and you can actually, at the end of the day, contribute, like I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And you said earlier a couple of points and especially questions that you should ask, which I will actually just take out of this interview and recommend everyone to prepare because I think they're great questions, like just the way to look at it, it's really, really good. So I'm very happy you've mentioned this because I think it's very important.
Yeah, it is really, really important. And you have to know, you have to know how are you going to sell, right? What are the expectations?
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. And now I wanna end this interview or this part of the interview actually with a question that we agreed we should ask.
Yeah.
Because I didn't ask this question before, and in the past few weeks I thought a lot about it. When we look at our career trajectory and what we envision for our different roles within our careers or our whatever entrepreneurial journey, whatever you want to build within your life, what is something that you would not like to do or something you should be prepared for and then consider if you should not do it? So I want to ask you, if there is anything, why should you then not consider a career in sales? What do you think people should know?
I thought about this when you said the question and I kind of hinted towards a little bit before of stuff I wanted to say with it. But, to preface, like I said, that back in the day, sales were that image of the used car salesman. This was first of all, male dominant industry. It was an aggressive industry. It was a little shady sales. You could lie, and it's different these days. And like, because of the world of the internet, everyone knows you better not be caught in a lie, and it's all about personal connection. And so I think on the one side, the people that should consider are the best people, have a hunger or yearning for exploring and learning more in the world of culture and human interaction. And, you know, if you are somebody that, so maybe of who shouldn't consider a job in sales, I think a lot of people that I've met get out of college and go, I can make a lot of money in sales, I'm just going to go there. And that's great. But if you're somebody in the most simplest form, that I know this is a very American thing to do when I say this, but if you go to the supermarket and you are wildly uncomfortable striking up a conversation with the other person who's waiting online at checkout, sales is not the role for you. If you are, if you fear like new experiences, and that's okay if you do, but if you get very uncomfortable with change and new experiences, it's probably not the right career path for you, because really this job is a desire to talk to people, a need to pivot and think on your feet. And from that, sales will come. And if you are that old school mindset of like, I'm just aggressive, you know, I'm kind of masculine and aggressive, and I could go after things, and like that old like hunter like mentality of sales, I actually think there's better roles for you in a corporate setting to go after things. I think today that's really what it is. So I would ask yourself, do you like talking to people? Do you like working in a fast pace? And do you like to be creative? And if you don't answer yes to those things, there are so many other jobs in the world of tech and SaaS that would suit you, whether it's in revenue operations or customer success. There could be either other parts of the revenue organization. But I would say that to be in sales, it really is, it's really about human connection and that desire to talk to people. It's
Absolutely
so important. Yeah. And women have that. So women should not shy away from sales anymore.
Absolutely.
If you're a girl that people told you when you were younger, you talk too much, you should join a sales team.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned that as well, because the aim is also to highlight the fact that careers are not gender-based, and that there will be an opportunity to thrive and develop, especially if you're in the right place and you have, and you yourself have the right mindset. Yeah. So I'm very happy you highlighted that, because I would love to see more women in sales as well.
100%. They really, really, really should. And I think, I think those stigmas are gone. And I think women have a nice finesse. They don't shy away from it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for that. Great. I mean, you shared so many pieces of advice. I'm sure that someone can write an article on how to be a good salesperson, and then be able to take at least 5 to 10 key takeaways from this interview. So to wrap up, I want to go to the final 5 fire questions.
Yeah.
And this is the section where Jessica will be sharing with us some of her recommendations to end the interview. So our first question is, what is one book that has had a profound impact on your life and that you believe everyone should read?
Oh, this is going to be a hard one for me. There's so many books. So I'm going to say one just right now. I said fire question, but really quick, at Dealfront, we have managers gift books to the people that report into them for the holidays that they think would make a difference. And I just got Brene Brown's Dare to Lead from my manager, and I've already finished it. And it was phenomenal. And my manager thought it was phenomenal. That's why he sent it to me. And so I would actually highly recommend that. And I would also recommend that tradition to be brought into your company, because I think it's a great one.
Great one. Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. Actually, that's great. And we all love Brene Brown, so great recommendation as well. Can you share, in terms of advice, what is one piece of advice that, you received and it really influenced your life?
Yes, there is a quote from the Dalai Lama, and I'm going to misquote it. So I'm just going to give a gist of what it says, that the most confusing thing in the the world was man because they work so hard, to make all this money. They sacrifice their health. Basically, the thing is saying you work so hard to make all this money that you don't live. Then when you retire and it's time to live, you need to use all that money because you've sacrificed your health. And then one day you look back on your life realizing that, you never really lived, you never really did anything, you didn't do much with that money. And that is a very butchered version of that quote. So everyone just Google the quote and read it. But the reason it's so profound is I think it's very easy to also get lost in our work. And I think the people that are going to be best in sales are the people who also know when to shut it off at the end of the day. And work-life balance is so key so you can come back energized. And I say the reason it is in sales is we're always hunting. We always are looking for that next opportunity, but you got to shut it down and be present with your friends and family too. You got to enjoy life. You got to take that time off from work, even though it might mean you're missing sales, because that balance is really important. And I promise it will help drive success.
Absolutely. Thank you for that as well.
You can get the exact one. I'll email it to you.
Please do. Please do send the recommendations. Who is your role model?
Man, I have a lot of role models. I don't know. Who is my role model right now? I wasn't expecting that one. I look at powerful female leaders a lot, and I find a lot of inspiration from them. For some reason, one of the first that comes to mind, which I'm laughing, is I just finished Michelle Obama's book, and I think that I'll say that she's a role model because I think any woman in politics who can stay poised and nice and friendly, and I never found her an exchange of nastiness or crossfire, and that is something that I try to bring with me to work and in my day-to-day life all the time, of just no matter what, staying respectful and nice and kind to other people. And I just finished her book, so she's a role model right now in that regard.
Fantastic, and what a great book! So thank you for that as well, Jessica. I have two more questions, and one of them is, if you were to have another career, which I think it's hard now, I know, but think about it. If you were to have another career, why would you choose it, and why?
If I was going to have another career, what would I want to do? I think that I would go into the catering business, like as a catering chef. And the reason being is, I love to cook. I love to be creative, but I really do love people, which is probably why I love sales. So being part of like celebrations, bringing good food to people, I think I'd find that really fulfilling. And I'm a little bit of a workhorse, so I think I'd like all the long hours of it. But I'm not sure I'm as good of a cook that I could actually do that.
That's really fun. And lastly, I want to ask you, if you could change places with someone for a day, who would it be, and what would you aim to achieve with it?
Wow. If I could trade places with someone for the day, who would it be? Man, that's a hard one. I'm trying to think of somebody that, I'm trying to think of somebody that's like the polar opposite of me, because I'd really love to experience, and I go to politics, so I'm going to avoid that on this podcast, but I'm trying to think of someone that would maybe like, I'd want to change spaces with like a male in their 60s with different views of mine to get a better understanding of who they are and why they think the way they think. Is probably actually where my mindset is going. I'm on a journey right now of really trying to understand people that think differently than I do, believe differently than I do, and find common ground with them. Has really been a focus of mine the past few months. And so that's kind of where my mind is going, but I'm trying to think of an actual person. But I want to avoid the politics. So if I say a person, so maybe I'll just say someone who's entirely opposite thinking than I am. Would honestly be my desire right now. And I think for everyone in the world, that would be a really beautiful thing if we could find common ground with people that believe entirely different or opposite beliefs of ours. still finding a way.
Very fair. And to also give one last reflection on that, sometimes perhaps we spend too much time finding differences instead
100%.
of finding common ground and how we can interact with each other. And the world would be such a better place if we would stop focusing only on the differences and actually do, like you just mentioned, find, take some time to reflect on what is actually common ground with this person and how we can work together on something.
I think that's beautiful, and it's so true. And if you can do it in your job, if you could do it in sales, because I guarantee I sell to people that are probably so different. Maybe wouldn't be in my circle, but I can find a connection through work. Then I'd love to find a connection through personal life as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica. This has been really a great interview. I hope you had fun and really appreciate your time here.
No, it was so lovely meeting you. Thank you for having me on.
Fantastic. And thank you all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this interview and stay tuned for more updates with inspiring female role models.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of FemLead Podcast. Share the news with your friends and follow us on social media at FemLead Podcast everywhere.